Hi, I wanted to introduce you to Bismarck. I've had several people ask me, how does a spinning wheel work? I've also had people ask about functionality of wheels and whether or not, you can buy a used wheel from the internet and everything. I figured I would explain to you how a wheel works, and hopefully from that you can garner an idea of what you need to be aware of when buying a wheel. So as it stands, Bismarck is put together and functional. I will show you to begin with how it works. This wheel basically makes this wheel, or whorl, W-H-O-R-L, spin. These come in different sizes. This particular wheel, excuse me, this particular wheel here, I believe is 18 inches, if I remember right. This is the Kromsky Sonata Encore with the magnetic flyer. Basically, the amount of times this spins, or I should say for one revolution of your wheel, it will spin this X amount of times, depending on the size of the whorl. They come in various sizes. This is one of the smaller ones. It's not the smallest, but it's smaller. Generally, the thinner the yarn, the more twist you need, and the more twist you need, the smaller your whorl that you use. You can also adjust for how fast you treadle. That's what these are called. So, on a Kromsky Sonata, I could be wrong, and caveat, I'm no expert. But this part is referred to as a head rather than a mother of all. And I think it's basically because a mother of all it comes out further. Because this is magnetic, it doesn't have the front components, I guess, that would be on your typical your front maiden is what they call it, which is the part that usually this kind of sits in on a shaft. There's kind of like a round bead-like thing. On my Kromsky Minstrel, it kind of sits in a bit of a leather bit here, and it's constructed a little bit differently. This is a travel wheel, so I believe that's why they call this a head instead. Again, I could be wrong. Either way, when looking at a wheel, you need to have all of these components. You need to have the part that has the whorl. You need to have the part that the bobbin sits on. This is, my yarn's coming apart. This is your flyer for the Sonata. It's just got these clips that they're plastic. They adjust. Some have like a pinchy kind of a clip. Some have what it could easily be argued of teacup or coffee cup hooks that run along the edges. Either way, you need to make sure that this is fully functional. It's not broken, bent, twisted, because it'll throw off the whole thing. Even sometimes when it's been repaired, I almost said prepared, when it's been repaired, because of how a wheel works, you might run into some balance issues if it's not been checked for that. So, and by not being imbalanced, similar to a car, like a bearing, your bearings going out, it can throw off the rhythm, and it can prematurely wear out other components. And I can assume over time it could wear out the bearings that are in here and what have you. This is magnetic. It goes on here just through magnet. But like I said, with a mother of all, it would come out, and like this component would actually kind of be in reverse, so to speak, out like on my shaft is. Where this part is mounted on here, and this goes into there. On my shaft, this is all together on this side, and that's where you get your front maiden and the whole mother of all as this vicinity, basically. So again, with the whorl, the size of the whorl, with the ratio, this size to this size, and you can adjust down. I can change it out to where this is this instead. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. If you have questions, feel free to post them. Either way, that's how this is your brake band. And between the two, that's how it functions. There we go. So that part's that. Like I said, this is a travel wheel. This here, the head, it attaches here. I don't know if you can see. There we go. It just goes down in, and then you tighten this knob here. You want to make sure that there aren't any cracks or warps in your wheel, that it's true, that it rides true. Here's your footman and the treadling. You want to make sure you got good, clean action. That there's no wobble and nothing out of whack. But basically, whether you're talking, this is a castle style wheel, whether you're talking castle or Saxony, it's really of no consequence. It just kind of changes how left or right to the side, your mother of all, your head assembly, side by side versus stacked on top of each other. It's a bit of a leg bone connected. Oh, look at my socks. It's a bit of a leg bone connected to a knee bone, where your treadles, which you only have to have one. Oftentimes it's difficult. This is my Lazy Kate, onboard Lazy Kate. You kind of have to have both to be able to get it started with your feet with no problem. Usually if it's a single treadle, you'll have to start it with your hand to go S or Z twist. Generally, if it has two, I pretty much don't have to start it with my hand. Which, I mean, I kind of got to that point, so to speak. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the orifice. Making sure that your orifice is clear. Making sure that your flyer is good as far as like no cracks, no repairs. Not to say you can't get by with repairs, you can. But I would be wary of doing it for any length of time. As somebody who comes at it from a mechanical standpoint, I know that will do damage to a car if things are out of balance. If your tires are out of balance, you could end up with alignment issues. You could end up with CV joints that go to poo, differentials that go to poo, because it is a situation where the foot is connected to the ankle, which is connected to the leg, which is connected to the knee, and so on. It's long been a discussed thing that if you have back problems, you probably have feet problems. So, and there's a reason for that. That this is connected to that, which affects other things. So, I'm no wheel expert, but I would be wary if the flyer was out of whack, out of alignment, out of balance, in the idea that it could damage down the line. Long term anyway. I'm sure you can get by with it. But anyway, that's how it works. You pedal, or treadle. That's what it's called, treadling, just like an old sewing machine. You treadle. This wheel spins this wheel. And then depending on how your brake band is adjusted, will affect your uptake. If I'll show you real quick as far as that goes. Okay, so I have been spinning this counterclockwise. Largely, this is just going to be for a weaving project, so it doesn't much matter. But generally, it is considered clockwise and then counterclockwise for knitting, and counterclockwise and then clockwise as far as spinning versus plying. For crochet, and it's basically because for crochet it kind of comes undone, so to speak. Anyway, so as you can see, this isn't really doing much. It's not drawing up. So if I adjust here for my brake, hang on. It's not really drawing it up at all. It's just spinning. So now it's kind of taking it in. Ideally, you want to be able to pull out and let it draw in. Pull out and let it draw in. Ideally speaking. Whew, look at that mess. There we go. Oops. I'm just showing one-footed here so you can kind of see. So that's generally how it goes. So you're creating your twist here, and then it draws it up with the brake, because you're stopping this from spinning. If I remember right, it likes to counter naturally. This one, for whatever reason, does not. So anyway, that kind of tells you everything that there is. You got your band, you got your footmen. Those are the ones that usually you run into a problem with. Brake bands can usually be easily replaced. Kromsky uses either the poly bands or hemp for your bands. Some people argue use cotton. Those are easily replaced. These are easily replaced. Your flyer, it can be replaced. There are people that do restorations and what have you. But just be mindful if you're shopping for a used wheel, make sure that this isn't damaged. Make sure if it's got the coffee cup hooks that they're not loose. Not to say that you can't fix that, you can. A little bit of wood putty, but it's a process and there's no guarantees. You want to make sure it's got your both footmen, or you have something that indicates that it can be adjusted, fixed. You want to make sure that this is level, plumb, whatever, true. That it's not going like wobble, wobble, wobble. That it just spins nicely without any issues. You want to make sure that there's no separation where wood joins are. Not that those can't be fixed, they can. And there are people out here who repair wheels. So, and just so you know, they do earn their salt. Very definitely, they do earn their salt. So, that's pretty much it. Like I said, this is the onboard Lazy Kate. There's 2 pieces that go in there where the bobbins will store. I think that's everything. I probably missed something because this is kind of a first time deal. Anyway, so hopefully that explains it and you get an idea, a gist of how it works and why it works. Like I said, this is a castle style wheel. Saxony is side by side basically. May or may not have 2 treadles. There's a few, I think there's a couple castle wheels out there that only have 1 treadle. It's not a requisite that you have 2. It just, I find it easier. I know some will probably be like, oh, I don't. Well, that's fine. That's why there's something different for everybody, right? So anyway, that's pretty much the basics. Those are the components that you'd look for in the event that you're in the market for a wheel and trying to save some money buying used. I mean, you do what you got to do. I got lucky and got a really good used wheel, but I did a bunch of research before I did. This was not bought used. This was bought new. But I'd be nervous about doing antique. Just because you can't get replacement parts, and unless you know somebody that's a real avid woodworker, good luck. Because like I said, those people earn their salt. So I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. Thanks much. Have a good day.